Hey guys, how are we doing? Crypto Insight UK here, bringing you back another YouTube video. So to start with, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been reading the newsletter. Last week we were 20th newsletter in the whole of crypto on Substack. So that's fantastic. Well, that's trending. So that's fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And the reason I'm addressing this to start with, obviously, we talked about are we at war and what potentially could happen with China and the US. But the thing I really want to focus on here is probably one of the biggest trends that I see in crypto right now, or like in macro markets. Yes, we're looking at M2 for expansion of cryptocurrency, but this is super important. I didn't mean to bing that. So I said, first off, let's talk about gold's relationship with Bitcoin. During times of global uncertainty, gold often sees increased demand. However, I believe gold might be experiencing what looks to be a blow off top at the moment. We've discussed this and how Bitcoin and gold tend to move in correlation, but in the short term, they often take turns leading the charge. Right now, it seems gold is overextended. Although I've mentioned this for a few weeks and been mistaken so far, I anticipate gold will eventually pull back. When that happens, I expect Bitcoin to take the lead and significantly outperform other asset classes globally. And this is the chart that I was showing. And then now I'm going to show you what's going on with gold. And I'm not saying that we're there yet. I'm just saying that this is what I expect and expected. And if we zoom into the shorter term, let's get rid of this at the bottom here, just to make it more clear. As what you can see is gold is on that pullback. I'll take us to 4 hourly just so we can identify this trend. Gold has actually started to pull back for the first time in a while, and Bitcoin is ripping into it. Look, if we see the Bitcoin and gold have been following suit, basically. Let's see if we can move this up so we can make it more clear. They've been basically following suit-ish, and then now gold having that pullback and Bitcoin saying, okay, let me take the reins from here. It's because of what I've been talking about in terms of uncertainty diminishing, and then realizing that the solution to all of these problems, whichever the solution may be, is in somewhere, whether it's worldwide, separate countries together, or on their own. Their money is going to be printed, and then liquidity is going to increase, and some of that liquidity is going to flow into crypto. And I think that's what either people are realizing or that's starting to happen. They're one of the two things, in my opinion, that's happening right now. So with that being said, we also called for Bitcoin to be like to 93, 94,000 based on liquidity, and we absolutely smashed it. It was like this area here, 93,300, and we smashed through that liquidity. And what I said is, as soon as we start to hit these liquidity pockets, you probably scale up pretty quick, because you start to squeeze people out of shorts, and then more people go short, and then you keep going higher. And that's basically what's been happening so far. And now we've got another pool of liquidity building above us here at 95, 96k. So I presume we probably see that, although we are starting to get a little bit overextended on the short-term time frame for Bitcoin. So I'm not going to make too many predictions about what's going to happen short-term, but because it's really difficult to tell, especially when you start squeezing leverage positions, and narratives all around the world are still pretty similar to what they were. But let's have a look at Bitcoin on the larger term, or the higher time frames. We still have a little bit of liquidity below us at 68k. But main liquidity is above us still at up towards 125,000, and we're starting to chomp through this liquidity, as you can see on the daily. We're starting to break out of that range that we were in. We're already back at $94,000. We're at another key resistance level here. We could probably see some sort of, again, squeezing of short positions, and just as you do on the downside, when you start to squeeze these longs and you cascade down, I presume the similar thing will happen back towards the upside. If we look at, we'll look at XRP now, shall we? XRP is the next liquidity chart I want us to look at. Where I'm going to take us down to the hourly and take us over to XRP, because this is something else we've been talking about. We're talking about XRP going to $2.33 for the same reasons as Bitcoin, essentially. Liquidity was there, and guess what? We're chomping through it. We're quite close there now. We talked about this yesterday. We were at like 212 when we started to talk about it, and I actually got laughs in my replies on Twitter. Look, I'll show you, people were laughing at me. Where is my 233? And then someone put like, not Jake. Someone just put like lol or something, can't even get past 220 if they can break 220. I'm not outing you, Mike, actually, because I love you, man. You're a sick guy. But I can't see it. Wishful thinking. Anyway, yeah. So just forget about that. But I do get trolled by things like that, but it doesn't matter, because it is what it is. I'll just show you what I see. Again, XRP is chomping through that liquidity that we've discussed, and I presume it goes to 233 here, at least in the short term. Let's have a look on the daily. I haven't actually looked at the daily XRP liquidity charts, not for a while anyway. Oh, it looks like, just from an initial look, let's go all together, bang. It does look like the majority of liquidity is above us here, although we do still have some down to 153. So whether we do come down and test that again or not, again, I don't know, but liquidity is seeming pretty large above us on the whole. So again, if we start to just chomp through this liquidity, it literally reinforces itself in a cycle. You start to move through levels and then you continue to go higher and higher. If we have a look back here and see if this happened back here, I don't know if it's going to show it. There's too much data. As you see here that we had some liquidity above us, you start to break through it and then you reaccumulate, and then more liquidity surfaces above you, and then you break through it and you reaccumulate, and then more liquidity creates above you, and then you reaccumulate and break through it. My computer's being slow here. Look, reaccumulate and break through it, but some liquidity gets left. You came down, you'd take a lot of that liquidity below us, and then guess what we're doing now? Reaccumulating. And there's liquidity building above us again, and I presume the next stage is to go and break through that liquidity for XRP. I hope that made sense when I was just showing you that, because my computer wasn't really loading very well at the time. If we look at Velo to give us an idea of open interest, I think Velo is looking pretty interesting right now. So what we're seeing is open interest is rising as funding is rising and premium is slowing. Slowing from the negative towards the positive, meaning that maybe more people are becoming long than short, or more longs are being added to the market right now, but it doesn't mean that the shorts have been fully liquidated and stopped out, which is what I expect to see. More shorts getting squeezed, potentially some, either like you can see short squeezing up to range highs, back test and continuation, or you can just see a short-term short squeeze and then a bit more like chopping around and then continuation. But the thing I would really like to draw your attention to is the amount of open interest. We actually are quite low in regards to open interest, similar to lower than we were here, even at like 50 cent, and much lower than we were before our rally to 49, from 49 cent up towards $3. So I do presume, and I do think that it's highly possible that from here we can squeeze a large squeeze and continue on the run, because as you start to squeeze up, you start to, as I said, liquidate these shorts. More and more people start to battle long and short. As you start to get the parabolic advance, people come in short, squeezes higher, squeezes higher, squeezes higher. And as you can see, what we've done since then, when this accumulation period, is basically just bleed out in terms of open interest, giving us that space to run up again and run up pretty hard. That's what I'm looking at here. I'd like to see some strong buy-in volume in terms of spot. And we'll probably flip back to being positive on both our funding rate and our premium, and that's when we'll probably really start this run. It shows that there's like bullish sentiment behind the move, especially if it's supported by spot buying. That's what I'll be looking for as we go higher and as we take this next stage of the bull run. And that's what I think will happen as well for Bitcoin. He's starting to already see that for Bitcoin. Bitcoin has stayed pretty bullish through this whole period, whereas XRP's flip-flop between being bullish and bearish. Yet, on this rise here, the significant rally that we saw for Bitcoin, similar to our XRP, really started to pump as well. We did see that flip to positive premium as well, just for the momentum days, and then again the bleed out and open interest since the top, very similar to what we've seen with XRP. So what do I think comes next? I am looking at ETH. I think ETH dominance is an interesting chart right now. I'll just show you that. I think XRP is going to continue its outperformance of the market. Yeah, I think ETH dominance, if we just take it on the daily, or the 3 daily I've just taken us to here, has literally came down to its lowest ever point, swept the lows that we put in for ETH in 2019, and potentially is bouncing. Obviously, it's too early to tell, but I would keep your eye on ETH here, because it's been heavily footed, and ETH dominance, as I said, is literally at its lowest point. So yes, we can continue to bleed out, and ETH can continue to go lower, and XRP could take the number 2 spot, and ETH could really slow out this cycle. It might not be ETH cycle, I don't know, but in a term of risk to reward trade, it's the lowest it's ever been historically. ETH, that's it. ETH dominance chart. Having said that, XRP ETH is battling with previous resistance and holding that resistance level as support now. And as I said, I think when this pops, we'll just see a continuation to the upside. One thing I wanted to draw upon here is, let me see if it was more clear on the 4 hourly. I don't know if it was. There was a nice trend line that I thought that I just saw this morning basically, and thought I wanted to mention to you guys. So maybe like this. Basically, XRP ETH's been holding this trend line since December, and that's 4 months now. So we're continuing to hold basically that trend line there. So we just bounced on it again right now, or just recently. So maybe every single time we've bounced on it, we have seen a significant reaction to the upside. So let's see what these reactions are to the highs. 68% outperformance. You can count this one, I guess. 32% outperformance to the highs. 42% outperformance. 20% outperformance. So we're going to get between a 20 and 60% outperformance. So that'd be 20%, and that'd be 40% taking us to our previous highs. To the next resistance level that we've been looking at. And let's have a look at 60. 60 would get us to about 0.2, I guess. That's 61, yeah. The 60 would get us all the way to here, which is 002. Let's have a look. My computer's being super slow today for some reason. So 60 would get us to here. 40% would take us to about here, which is the last real resistance level. So expect a bounce for XRP against ETH, meaning that expect XRP to outperform ETH in the short term based on what this trend line on its own, but also the trend that we've had since the start of this bull run so far. I expect similar for XRP Bitcoin. If we look on the weekly, that's why I've got this time frame, this area highlighted. This has been a key resistance level for Bitcoin on the weekly, and XRP seems to be still holding its support right now. Similar with XRP dominance, we're still working out this sign of strength phase after our Wyckoff accumulation schematics played out. And they're the things that I'm watching right now. Obviously, you've got to look to Bitcoin to be the market leader. It's erased a lot of negativity and price action in the space of this week. Realistically, it's broken that range. We'd love to see the weekly close above. If you can get a weekly close above like 100k, we're looking super, super nice. But even at 94k, it's a significant improvement from where we were just a few weeks ago. In fact, we're up in 3 weeks, 25%. So all the people who were bearish may be left on the sideline now. It's looking pretty bullish, at least for the short term. It doesn't mean we can't retrace and do something like this. I'm going to take us down to the daily and show you what I mean. It doesn't mean we can't do something like this. So we've broken out of this range. We could wick above here. We could break down to like this point here, and then we could start to work up again. Something like that. But we could also very easily, as I've shown you the liquidity break up, have that really bullish close and then really start to send it in towards May, June, July. Everything's on the table right now. I think things look bullish. We've got a lot of potential bullish catalysts. The uncertainty, as I said, for weeks has already topped out. I think that's been pretty clear. Because what's worst case? Oh, China and the US don't do a deal. They're pretty much not doing a deal right now, so it can't get too much more uncertain than that, because even if that happens, that is less uncertain than not knowing what's happening, because you have a certain answer, is what I've been saying to people. Whether it's the answer you want or not, that's up to you, I don't know. But there will be a certain answer. And they could come to the table and say, we've got a deal. We could see the Federal Reserve lower rates. We could see Scott Bessent say that they're going to buy back more treasuries as a deal with Japan. We could see Japan say that they're going to print to weaken the yen. So then that gives China space to print to weaken the yuan. We could see Europe continue to print. We're going to see probably the UK stimulate some growth. And we're seeing, like, obviously, capital fly back to these countries as well. You may see China change their stance towards crypto. We could see a host of things that could come in the short term that are positive. And for XRP, for example, you could see the Ripple SEC case get an official announcement from the SEC. That could be a positive catalyst. There's a lot on the table for positivity here. Let's see what happens and if and when they happen. But for now, just look at the fundamentals. I think watching gold and Bitcoin's relationship is extremely important here. I think gold is close to a blow off top. It doesn't mean I think it's going to, I think this is the end of the run for gold. I really don't think that at all. But what I do think is highly possible is that gold does have a short-term retracement and pullback. This is pretty parabolic. It could maybe pull back as far as 2,700. It could pull back to the $3,000 range, which is, although it doesn't seem like too much from this chart, it's still quite a big move. So 10% move to 3,000 and like a 12 to 15% to the 2,900. I think that they look possible. So again, bearish divergences on gold as gold has really rallied. Look, this is all bearish divergences here. So I've been calling that for a few weeks. I've been a bit early, but let's watch that relationship between gold and Bitcoin to give us the insight as to what's going to happen next in crypto. Obviously, the DXY has also been falling. I'm trying not to make this video too long, but as soon as I see something, I want to talk about it. We've actually, in the last day or two, retested the bottom of this previous range for the DXY and looking to continue the downside. I gave these targets of 95 and an overextension target between 89 and 91 way back in here, way back in this period. So we called the top actually in the newsletter. I remember calling this top when I was in Bali in 2022, and we then have pretty much since we said we were ranging in this period, and I expected at some point the range to break down. We did deviate to the upside, and then now I expect us to come down just on a technical level down to anywhere between 89 and 91 if we get the overextension, but 95 was my primary target. So let's see this correlation, this inverse correlation into Bitcoin. We've got all of this period to potentially pump crypto, 11 weeks worth of DXY weakening that we should see correlate into crypto strength. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, please do hit the subscribe button, share it with a friend, hit a like, and let me know if you've got any questions in the comment section below. Peace up, A-Town down, Crypto Insight UK would say.